Hello, welcome to a new episode of Free to Speak. Paul and I did a video a few weeks back that we had posted, and we ended up removing it because the quality of it wasn't very good. One of the things that we've been doing lately, of course, is we've been meeting online instead of in person because we don't live in the same area anymore, and so it's become very difficult for us to get together. Paul, if you remember from previous videos, Paul had taken a new job that took him on the other side of town, and it became very difficult for us to meet. So we started meeting online, but we had some internet issues, and sometimes the quality of the video wasn't so good. And with this video that we did, we ended up having problems with the video freezing. It didn't look good, and the audio didn't sound very good. There was just a lot of internet connectivity problems. But I kind of felt that the content was still kind of worth hearing and presenting. So what I'd like to do for this week is take some segments of that video and put them out with this clarification that we understand that it may be difficult to hear some of the things that we're saying, but we still feel that the content is worth discussing. So here it is. Hope you enjoy, and we'll be back eventually, hopefully in the next week or two, with a new video. So bye for now.
Can anybody tell me what's going on? Tell me what's going on. If you open your eyes, you'll see that something is wrong.
Hey Paul, welcome back.
Thank you. Hey Robert, how are you?
Good.
We've been discussing political topics, things about, let's say, elections, Donald Trump. At some point we talked about Ugandan politics, sadly. Another time we talked about wokeness and all this is governance. So I was thinking, how about we just try to, talk about democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the democracy could turn authoritarian. Point in case we had Amin, it was sort of like a democratic country, but then was exerting authoritarian rule. And an oligarch. Lately, people are suggesting America is now an oligarch.
You mentioned Idi Amin and how this Idi Amin arose in an environment where Uganda was actually a republic or / democracy. I don't know which you would classify Uganda as. How did this happen that an authoritarian arose in this kind of environment? Mm-hmm. And how true is it that Donald Trump is an authoritarian? What is the definition of an authoritarian state? How did Idi Amin come into power within the context of what kind of government Uganda had at the time? How did that occur?
So there was a coup d'etat where he took over power. When Idi Amin took over, it became an authoritarian state. In this context, you can still see someone being elected into power, but then they still, along the way, they put themselves in a position of authoritarian power. So even a democratically elected person can become authoritarian. We have a few governments where someone has been president for the last 25 years, in the sense that they take over the powers of the judiciary, the powers of the legislature, and they make sure whatever all these three arms of government are keeping them in power. So yes, it can still on the outlook look like a democracy, but then it's an authoritarian state because there's not necessarily power to the people. It's basically the people in government who have the power. So I think democracy, if you just define democracy on the out or from the surface, then almost every government would claim to be one. Whereas we have authoritarian governments which are in quote unquote democratically elected into power, but then they are authoritarian in their execution. Democracy in itself can be self-defeating. At some point in our discussions about the US, we said for every president we have, let's say 4 years of Trump, then people are like, no, we don't want Trump anymore. They throw him out. Then they bring Biden. Just a different ideology. After 4 years, we don't want him anymore. Let's bring back Trump. So the country keeps having lacks the consistency, or a pattern of like growth in particular fields, because it's like a ping pong game. You keep playing left, right, left, right, because of democracy. And because what I'm trying to say is that the problem with democracy is that most of the voters vote based on feeling. They don't. Most people they vote based on feeling. So if someone comes in and development or growth of a nation is not necessarily supposed to appease everyone, because sometimes a nation has to grow with hard decisions have to be made. There has to be some sacrifice, some pain along the way. So if the president comes and he has all the good intentions for the country and he makes the sweeping changes that are meant to help the country grow, the traction can be stopped by democracy, in the sense that people feel like, okay, this is a lot, they will just push him out. Then the other person comes, takes the country in the opposite direction, then they push him out also. So you find that the democracy, in a sense, can be self-defeating, where it keeps a nation in a state of stagnation, because we have this very polarized political environment, where if Trump pulls to the left to one direction, the next person will pull the polar opposite direction. So you find that there will be a lack of consistency or identity for this nation, and that's I would solely put that on democracy. Whereas the stance of a country like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates, we know who they are. We know that is who they are. That is their identity. It's never going to change, because they have a system that is consistent. In a monarchy, we know Saudi Arabia will not tolerate LGBTQ. They will not tolerate women dressed in this way. They will not tolerate this kind of corruption. These things, and that is the identity of that nation. Whereas a country that seeks to appease the citizens 100%, which citizens are usually just on an emotional roller coaster, will not have, in a sense, gain that level of identity. I think there's a stage of a country's growth where democracy is what it needs, that particular country will need, and there's a stage where the country would be, and they will probably not need a democracy. And I gave examples of Rwanda, and another example of Libya. Libya was not a democracy per se. Even on the face value of the democracy, but in actual sense it wasn't. But it was flourishing. So this guy was helping the country grow. He was doing the dirty work to make the country grow. And then there came democracy, and now look where
democracy came with bombs dropped on.
So so sometimes we need some leaders who are not here to impress. It's like in the workplace. If people chose their bosses in the workplace every time, let's have a vote. Let's vote who want to be the boss. We would have weak bosses at the top in the work of the workplace, because the weak bosses are here to impress everyone, and the workspace would not be as productive. Whereas there's a few people in the system of the workplace, like 5 people, who have to choose the direction of the workplace, and they impose on the rest that this will be your manager. And usually it's not about how nice the manager is, about how effective they are to make work happen. So sometimes that is what we need. Sometimes we need someone who is going to push us, who's not going to be so nice and pet us and smear us with lotion and Vaseline. Sometimes we just need someone who is tough.
So it seems, on the one hand, that there's some of that going on with Donald Trump right now, that you have somebody that's coming in and saying, we're going to confront all of these issues that have been pushed by the left over the last several years. And he's doing it in a rather aggressive and, dare I say, authoritarian way with a lot of these executive orders. But it's not like Trump is unique in doing these kind of executive orders, because Biden did the same thing, Obama did the same thing. When you look back to previous presidents, they've all kind of done the same thing. Now there's kind of a debate about how much Trump is doing this compared to how much other presidents have done it. So in that sense, can you see presidents in the U.S. as being authoritarian with the writing of executive orders? But in a way, I don't think it is necessarily, because these things can be challenged in courts, and the courts come in and say, no, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that. Well, I've heard people that are critical of Donald Trump, people among the Democrats, who are saying that because Trump is doing all these executive orders, that makes him an authoritarian. And it's a threat to democracy. But the reason that I have a problem with that argument is because Donald Trump won both the Electoral College and the popular vote. And people voted for him knowing the things that he was going to do, because he clearly said what he was going to do. And he's actually doing the things that he said. So we knew going into this he was going to do these things. So is that really a threat to democracy when the majority of people knew what Trump was going to do, because he promised, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. And now that he's doing A, B, C, and D through things like executive orders, which can be challenged in courts, the Democrats want to come along and say he's a threat to democracy, which doesn't make sense to me as an argument.
So Trump had a sweeping win where he literally won all the three arms of government. Where it matters is his people. Give him power, which is unchallengeable, because if he has a decree, you wouldn't expect a judiciary that is his own to deny him his decree, and you wouldn't expect the House or the Senate to deny him. So literally, he has the power. And it's not like it's not in his own, it's not in a fault of him. It's a strength from him that will just be able to get that power. But now he has it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can anybody tell me what's going on?